Hello friends, welcome to Romans chapter 3. So this is a really wonderful passage here because it's talking about faith. It's talking about, I feel like this is just the best setup for the gospel here because it's really talking about how none are righteous. And that's something that I don't think our culture understands well enough. Anyways, the chapter starts off by saying, what good is circumcision? What good is it to be a Jew? He's speaking to the Jewish people primarily in this letter. And they're not really asking the question, but he's like posing the question, because he knows that they are thinking it. And so he's like, so you might be asking, what good is it to be a Jew to begin with? What purpose was this, why was this our Messiah? And then it goes to the whole world. Like, is there any distinction? And essentially he's saying, no, there's no distinction here. God is not showing partiality to you at all. And he builds that up a lot, but he's saying God used us. God used us in a wonderful way. He brought the oracles of God through our people. And then he goes on, he's talking a lot about the law here. And they're kind of confused, and it's confusing even to us, maybe even more so us, because I feel like again and again and again we fall back in this trap. At least I do, and I know people around me do too, where you fall into this trap where you think, but I'm a good person, and you keep on trying to earn your salvation. I do it over and over again, and it's just so hard to realize that we're saved by grace. And so he's kind of setting that up, and he says, none are righteous, not even one. There's nobody in the whole world who is righteous enough to earn their salvation or to be saved from sin. It's just not possible. And then he goes, I love the language of this. My explanation of this doesn't do justice to just how poetic Paul is in these letters. And in this section, he's quoting a lot from the Old Testament, but he's like, their mouths are, what does he say? It's like their mouths are open graves, And he's saying nobody seeks after God. He gives this long list, and at the end he says, nobody seeks God. And then he punctuates it by this statement. He says, so whatsoever the law says to them that are under the law, that every mouth might be stopped, and the whole world will become guilty before him. That's pretty bold. It's kind of like, you could plead. I feel like that's what you hear in culture so much. You say, why do you deserve to go to heaven? And they're like, but I'm a good person. And then you'll talk to them about how good of a person they are. And they keep pleading and pleading. They're like, no, I'm a good person. I've done this, I've done that, I've done this. But the Jewish people, they do kind of have an advantage because they have the law. And the Jewish people know that they have not followed it. So it says to them that are under the law that every mouth might be stopped and the whole world will become guilty. So that's what you need to do. You need to become guilty before you can receive grace. And so what he says next is something very interesting. This grace that we get it by faith. Think of faithfulness in the same way that you would be faithful to a spouse. You need to be faithful to God. And part of that is just coming back to him. When you when you have failed his law, come back to him. So, it's coming back to this idea that was talked about in the last chapter, that the righteous shall live by faith. So Paul poses this other question. They weren't really asking it, but he presents the question like he did the first one. And the question was this: what are we supposed to boast about? If we're saved by grace through faith, then how are we supposed to boast? And it's a good question. And I feel like we intuitively know the answer. We're not supposed to boast in anything except for our relationship with God. But it's hard because boasting, I feel like, is part of the human nature. I think it's part of our sinful nature. When you think of yourself and how your worth is, that's essentially your boast. How am I supposed to walk around every day and feel like I'm a good person? I feel like everybody intuitively wants to justify themselves in our culture and say, I have worth because of this. I have worth because of that. And in the Jewish sense, they had worth because they were the chosen people of God. And so they don't have this boast anymore. They don't have this way of saying, look, we are better than everyone else. And that's by design. God doesn't want us to do that. God wants us to sit back and say, I have no boast. I am only relying on God. And he kind of presents another question then. And the question it has to do with easy believism. It's this idea that, well, why don't I just then go on sinning? Why don't I just go on sinning so that God can give me more grace? Essentially saying, what incentive is there? What incentive is there to do good? And Paul is saying that, you believe that the law is good. The law is good, and we need to follow it as part of our faithfulness to God. And so he talks about that later on in this book. And so I'll just pose the question right now, but it's kind of confusing, when you're saved by grace. What do you do with the law? And it's a very, very interesting question. Anyways, that is Romans chapter 3. Have a great day. Bye.